This is the Montgomery course at the Max Royale. I'm here thanks to Golf Travel Centre, and in this video I'm going to give you 10 incredibly easy, quick, short game tips to level up your chipping and your pitching. Let's get started with the first one. Think about where you put your focus. This is so important when we're looking at short game shots. This was a lesson I learned from Seve. He did it exceptionally well, one of the best short game players ever. And it's all really to do with, as I say, where your focus is and where you're looking. Too many golfers will look down at the golf ball and be obsessed with the golf ball and the club and the movement and their swing shape. And they're looking down here and they're staring at the ball, and every now and then they'll glance at the target. You look at the best players, and we'll use Seve for that example. He used to do the complete opposite. That ball is not going to move. It's going to stay where it is. So Seve would always say, stare at the target and glance at the ball. So when you have your practice swings, look at what you're trying to do. Look at the shot that you're faced with. Look at where you want the ball to land, how it's going to release, how it's going to roll. And as you're making your practice swings, you're just staring at the target. You're absorbing everything about the shot. You're glancing at the ball, and then when you walk in, again, your focus is still on the target, and execute. And if you can do that, is that going to break a bit right? If you can do that, if you can start to put your focus out there externally, you're going to get much, much better results. Stand the shaft up when you're chipping. Really, really important. Why is that important? Well, have a look at this. When I start to sand the shaft up, we start to get the toe going down a little bit, heel raised up. We get a slightly smaller profile, which means that we get less interference with the ground. That's the first thing. The second thing, and why it's so beneficial, is that it reduces the arc in the stroke and it reduces the amount that the club face opens. So if I was to lower the handle, the club head is going to work more inside and more inside, and the club head is going to stay lower to the ground. There's also more opening and closing of the club face. It just makes it more difficult to hit straight shots with consistency. As soon as we start to stand the club shaft up, the club moves a little bit straighter back, moves a little bit straighter through, there's far less rotation of the club face, and there's a little bit more upwards in the backswing and a little bit more downwards, and that helps us with strikes. So I'm going to stand in really close, I'm going to stand the shafts up, and it's going to help me hit better chips because I've got better interaction with the ground. Doesn't help me hit it the right distance though. Let's have one more go at that, because that was technique-wise okay. Slightly better result. So stand the shaft up, you're going to get better results with your chip shots. Clearly, this is just one wedge, but I've got 3 golf balls here because with just one wedge, you can hit the ball on different flights, thinking about where the grip end of the club points in your follow-through. Let me explain. The best chippers, the best pitchers of the golf ball have the ability to control the flight without changing the club. I'm going to show you how to do it. So from a normal setup where the ball is in the middle of my heels, my weight is a little bit forward, I want to think about the grip end of the club. Where does that point at the end of the motion? When I hit the first shot, I'm going to focus on getting the grip end to point sort of up and behind me like this. If I can achieve this position, that's going to give me a lower ball flight that's going to have a little bit more rollout. If I then, on the next shot, focus on trying to get the grip of the club to point a little bit more at my belt buckle, as you can see here, that's a slightly different release. That's going to add a little bit more loft. It's going to go on a mid-flight and obviously a mid-rollout. And then the last shot, again, same setup, same club. If I tried to get the grip of the club to point more down towards my lead foot or even the ground, again, that's a different release. That's going to give me the highest launch angle I can achieve. It's going to give me the softest land angle with the least amount of rollout. Now they do take a bit of practice, but with a bit of practice and a bit of skill, you can take one club and you can use that to hit all of the different shots that you need around the green, and that is how you become really elite when it comes to short game. No one wants to duff it, especially when you're just off the green like that. So what was the fault? Not enough speed. I didn't need speed for the shot, I needed speed because of the lie. It was thick, long grass in the rough. And when you're in that situation, you have to have speed. Otherwise, the club just simply won't go through the grass and you're going to get that result. What people often do is they hit that, it's short, so the next thing they do is they use more speed, and then suddenly the ball goes way too far. So when you're in this situation and you need speed, and we do need speed, we've got to send the ball up if we don't want it to go too far. So even though this is a really short, delicate shot, I'm going to have to crank the face open, add more loft, because what that does is it means I can now use more speed, but the ball's not going to go too far because the energy is going to be projected upwards, not forwards. There's always a process. Follow the process, use some speed, add some loft, and you can hit some better shots when you're just off the green. I'm faced here with a shot of around about 25 yards. We're starting to get into that area of kind of pitching. You've got to stay connected, and that's where this towel comes in. We're going to use that in a moment. But so many golfers from sort of this situation will just get very, very armsy. The arms and the club are not really working in sync with the body. Makes it very difficult to be consistent. So I'm sure you'll have seen this done before, but it is still a great drill. Just be careful the distance that you do it from. You don't want to go sort of 70, 80 yards, but certainly from this distance, it's great because what it does is it connects my arms to my body so I can start to become a lot more connected. And as soon as I put that towel in, I straight away feel like my body is kind of more engaged and it's got more of a role to play. Ooh, that was pretty close. You've got to extend upwards in the follow through when you're pitching the golf ball, and I'm going to explain to you why. Let me take a set up to this golf ball and you will see what I mean. So as I set up, clearly the club is on the ground. Now if I keep everything the same, but all I do is I raise up, so I've straightened up, and I rotate through, the golf club is in this position. Now I haven't done anything with my hands, anything with my arms, that's all because of what my body's done. So my body movement causes that club to go from being on the ground to being in this position. So my body is creating the upward movement in the golf club. If my body doesn't do that, what's going to create the upwards in the golf club? Well, very often it's the hand and the arms. So I often see golfers who don't use the body particularly well, and through the ball they are creating the upward with the arms. Look at this, I'm separating the elbows. I feel like I've got to pull the grip up and out the ground. What I would rather you do is feel as if you're rotating and extending, because it's that that's going to move the club up and out the ground. You're going to find that your contact with the ground is much more consistent. You're going to be more controlling of the ball flight. You're basically going to hit better shots. This is a little bit more of a longer shot, 20, 25, 30 yards, but make sure you rotate and extend. I want you to feel the golf club, sense the club head, be aware of it through the golf swing. I do not want you to squeeze the life out of that club and hold it as tight as you can. And I see this all too often. You may well be watching this going, Chris, that sounds like me. Well, let's get that sorted. If I set up and I squeeze the golf club as hard as I can, I'm going to have a motion which is really short, jerky. It's not going to have any flow. It's not going to have any rhythm to it. And I might hit the odd one pretty good, but I'm not going to have any touch or any feel. So let's keep the grip pressure really nice and light. You're going to find that you have a lot more flow to your motion, you're going to have a lot more feel, and you're going to have a lot more sense and awareness of what the club head is doing. And when we have awareness of the club head, we're better at our short game shots because we can sense what that's doing through the motion. So I've got a really delicate shot here. It's a short shot, it's going downhill. If I was to strangle this golf club, it would be an incredibly difficult shot, but I've got the lightest grip pressure that I can have. I'm going to feel the club head, and I'm just going to drop that onto the back of the ball and let it trundle all the way down. And it didn't. It stopped short, but I'll be very happy with that. Limit the sway. If you've got any lateral movement in your chipping, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to strike it consistently. It's not uncommon to see as the club goes back, the head makes the opposite movement, such as this. You can see my head going forward and back. That's going to change the weight, the pressure of my feet, and it's going to make landing the club where I need to incredibly difficult. So that little exercise you saw at the start, I call that the flamingo drill. You take one foot, you've got your buttons on your shirt stacked above your foot. This is here for a little bit of balance, and it's going to teach you to start to pivot around that one point. And you're going to find your strike gets much, much better. And then whatever that feels like, you can then take that to your shot. So I'm going to take a little narrow stance. I'm going to put my weight on my lead side, and I'm going to feel like I pivot around that lead foot. Right, take a look at the shot that I've got here. I'm going to that second flag, which is probably 30 yards away. Got a bit of green to work with, so not too bad, but look at the lie that I'm on. It's quite a severe downslope. And when you're on a downslope, and you'll get these all the time when you're chipping around the greens, you've got to match the slope. Now, naturally, what we want to do is find this kind of perfectly level position that we're so used to being in. And what that means is that we absorb the slope with our trail leg. The issue there is it's difficult to move the club away, and if you do move it away, really easy to top it and thin it like I did there. So here's the rule. When you're on a down slope, ground running away from you, I want you to match the slope. Eyes, shoulders, hips, knees, feet. That means I'm going to lean this way. Now I have to take a wider stance to do that, because if I don't, I'm going to fall over. but I'm now matched with the slope. My knees have got equal flex, and I want to push the ball a little bit further back than I would normally. Helps me with strike. So from here, my club can now work with the slope. I've got a much better chance of striking it. The final thing you have to do is accept that my 56-degree wedge here is going to come out lower. It's going to be 56 minus whatever that slope is. Probably can't measure it, you have to have a best guess, but if you can do that, appreciate it's going to come out lower, you should be in a position where you can hit some better shots from here. Takes a little bit of factoring in, but this ball should come out probably more like a pitching wedge, if not a 9-iron. There's that lower flight, but I planned it out, and if it breaks a bit right, oh, not bad. And tip number 10, I know this one might sound boring, got to keep your wedges clean. Just look at that one. I've been hitting a few shots around the green, and you can see the grass in the face here. That is going to massively change how this golf club performs. It's going to spin less. And when it spins less, it generally launches higher. So you're going to get different results than what you'd expect just because your clubs are dirty. So get into the habit of always cleaning your clubs. A tee will work just to get all of the debris out of the grooves, and then just make sure you've got your towel handy, always wet it, keep those golf clubs clean.